Hey all, what is up? Keasbey here. So today we're going to be looking at part 2 of Learn a Deck with Me, Purrely edition. Sorry for the delay on this video, there's been a lot going on off channel. So in part 1 we read everything in the archetype, looked at anything that we could potentially use to build around or even blend with other archetypes maybe, and after doing that and a little bit of off-camera testing, I've landed on 2 basic lines of play that I think are really important to know, as they were the ones that came up the most often so far. But before we get into all that, don't forget to drop this video a like and subscribe to the channel for even more. So first and foremost, something I picked up on, which will play into both the lines of play that we're going to be covering in this video. There are barely any once per turn effects going on in this deck, like at all. Purrely herself triggers every time she's summoned, no matter how many times, and the quick plays, which, as a reminder, all have a modular effect to special summon Purrely from the deck, are also all non-once per turns. A quick side note about how the quick plays resolve regarding summoning Purrely. The entire discard and summon portion of the effect takes place at resolution. First, this means that because the potential to summon from deck exists at the time of activation regardless of whether you intend to or not, this card can be Ash Blossomed, so something to keep in mind there. However, if the card is hit with Ash Blossom, you will never need to discard because, again, since it happens as part of resolution, not a cost of activation, the ashing would happen before you would actually discard. But on the flip side, because the discard isn't a cost, this actually gives you the potential to blend with something like Dark World, for example. I won't personally be doing that, but I did want to mention it here. So aside from the once per turns or the lack thereof, something that I think I really understated in the first video is just how good ExPurrely Noir is. Before we deep dive, let's just refresh on the Epurrelys, which are the rank 2s, and the ExPurrelys, which are the rank 7s. In addition to their unique effects, all the Epurrelys share an effect that thrice per turn, when you activate a Purrely quick play spell, you can attach it to them as a material. I don't remember if I mentioned this in the previous video, but it bears mentioning again if I did. Unfortunately, because the Epurrely specifically say when, if your opponent or you do anything in direct response to the activation of your Purrely quick plays, your Epurrely will miss timing and won't be able to attach it as a material. So if you summon Purrely, activate her effect to XZ summon, you'll have an Epurrely with 2 materials already. Then if you use all 3 of the thrice per turn attachment effects, that puts you at 5, which means you can now go into an ExPurrely. Both ExPurrelys share the summon condition that you can overlay them over a rank 2 monster with 5 or more material. Side note on that, it doesn't specifically need to be an Epurrely, but can actually be any rank 2 with 5 or more materials, and while I don't ever see that coming up, it's my channel, so we're gonna mention the weird one in never scenarios. So now a light refresh of the ExPurrelys. They actually gain additional materials when they have 5 or more materials under them. So if we summon them by their own conditions, we actually end up with 6 materials. Purrely, the initial quick play, the Epurrely, and the 3 quick plays you attached. ExPurrely Happiness gains the effect that when she attacks, you can deal your opponent 1500 damage, but we're here to talk about ExPurrely Noir. Noir gains the effect that she is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. Okay, so that's not total blanket protection, but let's talk about what that does protect from, because it is actually quite a lot. With this, there are, as always, going to be weird cases that either feel like they should be activated effects, but aren't, or they function in a weird way that gets around Noir's protection, but I'll cover the 2 most relevant ones later on. For monsters, any trigger or ignition effect is considered activated. So, for example, Rise of the Mega Monarch or Empen's effect to half the stats of a monster, both of these are activated effects and therefore will not affect Noir. Important to note though, your opponent can target and attempt to interact with an unaffected Noir, so they can actually burn resources making that mistake. As far as spells and traps, the majority of normal spells and traps all hit with activated effects, so something like Dark Ruler no more, Raigeki, Dogmatic Punishment, Infinite Impermanence, none of these will affect a 5 material Noir. Additionally, continuous spells and traps, field spells, and equip spells with trigger and ignition effects specifically will not affect her. Let's talk now about things that will affect Noir. Continuous monster effects, such as Destiny Hero Plasma, will affect her. Continuous spells and traps and field spells that have ongoing effects, such as Floowandereeze and the Unexplored Winds or Skill Drain, will also affect her. Something that did come up recently, equip spells can be equipped to her, and any non-trigger or ignition effect on them will affect Noir. An example of this would be something like Snatch Steal, which has the continuous effect to take control of the monster, which would take control of ExPurrely Noir. So let's touch on two meta-relevant things right now that weirdly affect Noir. First is Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon. The effect to send a Despia fusion monster from the extra deck to the graveyard to banish a monster on the field will not affect Noir. However, the other effect where if Mirror Jade is removed, the opponent's field is nuked during the end phase, will cause Noir to be destroyed. So I don't want to say that it affects her, and I kind of want to use this as a case example for something to watch out for that will affect Noir. So similar to Dimension Shifter, Mirror Jade's effect activates and resolves at one time and then happens later on, quote unquote, around happens. So like how Dimension Shifter doesn't actually banish anything, rather he alters the game state in a way where everything is banished instead of going to the graveyard, Mirror Jade doesn't actually destroy anything. Rather, it's an activated effect that is altering the game state so that down the line during the end phase, everything will be destroyed. So while yes, it is an activated effect, it isn't the effect itself that destroys Noir, but rather the altered game state that that activated effect created. It's really weird, I know, but it is something to watch out for. The other weird case is Dimensional Barrier. Dimensional Barrier actually feels even weirder than the previous example. It isn't actually interacting with monsters directly. It's another one that's creating an altered game state in which the specific monster type declared's effects are negated. Unlike Dark Ruler No More, which directly interacts with monsters, Dimensional Barrier is directly interacting with the player and then altering the game state on top of that. So the effect that negates all Xyz monsters if your opponent declares Xyz will negate Noir. And then the other thing to watch out for is just Kaiju, Spear Mode, Lava Golem, and most specifically, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, which I have been hit with multiple times during testing. Nibiru, however, will not affect Noir since it is a summon via effect, while all the previously mentioned examples are summoned via mechanics. Okay, with that all out of the way, the first thing we need to know for this deck is how to make ExPurrely Noir turn 1. I already kinda highlighted the basic way, but what if you want to build a bigger Noir or extend out your field a little bit more than just her? As it stands, you will end with a 6 material Noir, doing this the most basic way, which is all well and good, but the moment you detach 2 materials from her to use a bounce effect, she's now at 4 materials and is effectable again. Well, let's look at Epurrely Plump. Plump has the effect that she can target 2 spells or traps in either graveyard and attach them to herself as material. So now let's rewind the scenario. We open Purrely, 3 quick plays and either a 4th quick play, or we get one off of Purrely's effect on summon. Now, let's say we make Epurrely Plump first. In any other case, we wouldn't really be able to summon more Purrelys because if we didn't get more quick plays off of the new Purrely's effects, we'll run the risk of not having enough materials to make a 5-mat Epurrely. However, due to Plump's effect, we can actually take that chance, then worst case scenario, attach 2 of the discarded quick plays to her via her effect and still get that same basic 6 material Noir, plus an additional rank 1 as well if you got 2 extra Purrelys on the field. Going this route via Plump can actually yield a 7 or 8 material Noir, allowing us to get a bounce in, say for example if you think your opponent's going for the Underworld Goddess play, and then combined with the field spell if you can get that in the mix, you can end on a 9 material Noir, which is 2 bounces while still having the protection effect. Plus, due to Delicious Memory's effect, that Noir is going to have at least 3k defense, which is very difficult to attack over. ExPurrely Noir is definitely something that I undersold in the first video, and it's really kind of shifted my view of this deck away from being a cute OTK idea to a really solid control build. That being said, we do have a fun OTK line, so this one does require a little bit of setup, but it comes up fairly often in testing, so for sure it's worth being aware of at least the most basic way to do it, and then from there you can actually modify this to work in other scenarios, but we're going to look at the most basic way to do it. So for this we need Purrely, Delicious Memory, Happy Memory, and for our opponent to have an attack position monster with 2400 or less attack. Again, I know it sounds like a lot of setup, but there are other ways to do it besides this ideal way. So really, this one takes full advantage of the non-once per turns on the quick plays. We'd use Purrely to go into Epurrely Happiness. Epurrely, not ExPurrely. Happiness has the effect that when it battles, after damage calculation, you can add a Purrely card from your deck to your hand, then half the attack of a monster on the field. Non-targeting also, which is absolutely lovely. So we have Happiness on field. Next, we're going to fire off our first copy of Delicious Memory. We'll use Happiness effect on Chainlink 2 to attach it, boosting her up to 2900 attack due to Delicious Memory's effect. And then we'll actually make our opponent's monster unable to be destroyed by battle at the resolution of Delicious Memory. Important to know, because we already have Happy Memory as a material, we currently have 2 attacks on monsters. And Delicious Memory's protection is not the first time it would be destroyed by battle, it is not. It is full on, cannot be destroyed by battle until the end of the next turn. So now we start by attacking into our opponent's monster. We'll deal some damage and use Happiness to add another copy of Delicious Memory while having our opponent's monsters attack. We're going to fire off that Delicious Memory using Happiness's second of 3 attaches to attach it as material. Happiness is now gaining 600 per her 4 materials, boosting her up to 4400 attack, and we're going to go ahead and attack again. This time we are going to grab a copy of Happy Memory and have our opponent's monsters attack once again. We're now out of attacks until we fire off that Happy Memory we just added and used Happiness's last attachment effect for the turn. So now, because again, all the quick plays as material effects do stack on each other, we're going to gain an additional attack, which we are going to use to reduce our opponent's life points to 0. Happiness, by the way, will be at 5000 attack for this last attack. I know, again, it does sound very situational, but it comes up a lot, and there are alternative ways to get to this combo that knowing the basic line will help you figure out. Okay, so with that out of the way, we're going to do a couple of test hands to show these in action in less than perfect scenarios and see if we can get there. As always with the test hands, we're going to assume no interruptions and run from there. However, when we do the Happiness line, we are going to start with 4 cards in hand, just to assume that we used an Ash or an Imperm or something like that on our opponent's turn to make it possible to get there. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be doing is making ExPurrely Noir on turn 1 via ExPurrely Plump. So let's show that in action with a test hand. Something I do want to point out, I'm still working on this deck, so you may see cards during this test that are not going to be in the final when I show the deck. Okay, so this is a hand that we definitely can get there, potentially even through interruptions actually, but we're going to pretend no interruptions. So first thing we would want to do, normal summon Purrely. We're actually going to hold the My Friend Purrely here. 1, 2, 3. Amazing. Let's go ahead and add the second copy of Delicious Memory. So we're going to go ahead and activate Purrely's effect, reveal the Delicious Memory, and we are going to overlay into ExPurrely Plump. Okay, so we're at 2 materials right now. Let's go ahead and fire off, actually, we're going to hold My Friend Purrely. We're going to fire off Delicious Memory, and we are going to go Chainlink 2, ExPurrely Plump, so that'll attach as material. And we will go ahead and discard this Ash Blossom in order to special summon a Purrely from deck. Shuffle it up. And we'll just say, by the way, that Epurrely Plump can't be destroyed by battle. We got to declare something with Delicious Memory, so might as well just do that. All right. Top 3 for Purrely. Happy Memory, another Delicious Memory, and Monster Reborn. Let's go ahead and grab the Happy Memory. Oof, we are feeling lucky today. I think what we're going to do is fire off the Happy Memory. Chainlink 2, we will attach here. So we are currently at 4 materials. And we are going to, as I mentioned, we can actually afford to discard this copy. Because worst case scenario, if we missed the next Purrely, we can just attach it from graveyard. So let's discard this. I want to hold the My Friend Purrely as long as I can. And we are going to go ahead and special summon another Purrely. If I could get this lucky with this deck all the time, it'd be absolutely beautiful. Alrighty, let's go Purrely. Let's see what we got. Cross out, 1 for 1. Triple attack. Alright, so we whiffed on that. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and activate Epurrely Plump. Go ahead and attach that material. So we have the bare minimum 5. Let's fire off My Friend Purrely. I'll pay the 500. And we will go ahead and reveal Stray Street, Stray Street, and Stray Street. Again, really important to remember, you can reveal 3 of the same card with this, and your opponent randomly has to give you 1. So we're going to randomly get a copy of Stray Street here. Go ahead and activate it. So this is going to let us attach a material from deck or graveyard to our ExPurrely Noir at the end of every turn. So it's just additional materials. So it's going to give us 7 materials for this ExPurrely Noir that we are going to make. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with her. So this is a huge ExPurrely Noir, by the way, because the 2 delicious memories, it's 600 for the 6 materials. So she's gaining 3,600 attack. That puts her somewhere in the 6,000s. I can't really do the math right now, sorry. And we'll go ahead and just overlay these 2 into Let's assemble, or Ensemble Blue Robin. I'm so used to saying Assemble Nightingale. So it's really important, by the way, that we do this first, just in case, because if we made Ensemble Blue Robin first, our opponent could Nibiru us. Now if they Nibiru us, they'll just hit the Robin and the ExPurrely Noir will be unaffected. So really important to do that in that order. The only time you would ever even want to consider maybe doing it in the reverse order is if we still had a delicious memory in our hands that we can make the Ensemble Blue Robin unable to be destroyed by battle. But again, at that point, you're running a risk of Nibiru because Purrely number 1, Epurrely Plump, Purrely number 2, Purrely number 3, and then either Ensemble Blue Robin or ExPurrely Noir as number 5. So yeah, that is ExPurrely Noir. We go into the end phase, and just for a little variety, we'll go ahead and attach a pretty memory for next turn. So that is ending us with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 material Noir, which means we can do 1 bounce and still have her be unaffected. She's got like 7,000 defense right now, so there's shy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. There's nothing really that can attack over her. And we do have the Ensemble Blue Robin for additional field support as well. Plus, if we do lose this Noir by anything, my friend Purrely and the field spell will kick in, giving us back some resources. Alright, so let's look at the Epurrely Happiness OTK now. Okay, so again, we're only going to draw 4 cards off the top. We're just going to go ahead and assume that our opponent ended here. And okay, assuming no interruptions, this is absolutely perfect. We can do it from here very easily. So the first thing we're going to do is fire off my friend Purrely, and we'll pay the 500 to reveal 3 copies of Purrely. Purrely. And Purrely. Our opponent will randomly give us 1, so... Oops. Alright, so we're going to have to shuffle this up because we're going to do some revealing. We did open Delicious Memory and Happy Memory, so like we have everything in hand that we could need for this. But I'm going to play it out in full just to show, if it comes up, potentially how you could do this if your opponent has something with more than 2,400 attack, or if we need to, for example, change something from attack to defense position. There are ways to do it. So, summon Purrely, activate the effect. 1, 2, 3. Would have preferred a quick play, but we'll take Stray Street. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do now is activate Purrely, reveal Happy Memory, and we are going to overlay into Epurrely Happiness. Next thing we're going to do, fire off Delicious Memory. We could also activate Purrely Stray Street as well. I'm going to overextend a little bit, but if you want to do this a little safer, we would have done this first because it makes it so that our Purrely monsters special summon this turn can't be targeted. Again, we're assuming no interruption, but I just want to point that out, that if you wanted to be a little safer, we could have done that. But we're not going to here. So we're going to fire off Delicious Memory, Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, activate Epurrely Happiness to attach. And on resolution, we will go ahead and discard this Ash Blossom to special summon a Purrely and make this Hungry Burger unable to be destroyed by battle. There's our Purrely. Let's go ahead and shuffle up. So we're not going to be able to show from here how we would be able to do this if our opponent had a defense position monster, because we would need access to Epurrely Beauty and an extra quick play, since Epurrely Beauty's on attachment effect also can change the battle position of a monster, but that's how you would do it if your opponent had nothing in attack mode. Purrely, my friend. Nibiru. Oh, and another Delicious Memory. So this actually is going to let us skip a step of the OTK. So we're going to fire off Delicious Memory. And we'll do chain link to Epurrely Happiness. So we have used 2 attachments already, so we only have 1 left, but that's absolutely fine. I think this, by the math involved, will actually do this in 2 attacks. And at the end of resolution, we'll say Purrely Happiness cannot be destroyed by battle, and we'll discard to special summon another copy of Purrely. So this, let's just say, for example, take Hungry Burger out, and we'll pretend this Nibiru is a Nibiru token with 3000 attack. This is how we would do it if our opponent had something big. I mean, obviously at this point it doesn't matter because our Epurrely Happiness has 2 delicious memories under it, but let's just pretend that it's 2 happy memories or something. And we'll just do this Purrely for the sake of doing it. 1, 2, 3. Oh, happy memory. Okay, so we have absolutely everything we need already to do this. So now all these can just be extra searches for other stuff, but let's go ahead and fire off happy memory, chain link 2. There we go. And we'll just say Purrely, my friend, can't be destroyed by card effects. Next time it would be. So we would overlay here into a fun tech card I like for this deck, Ghostrick Dullahan. So now we can go ahead and detach, and we'll half the attack in this Nibiru. So again, if we didn't have the 2 delicious memories under Epurrely Happiness, this would knock this down to 1500 and we would be able to do the combo. So let's just say we did that. And at this point, we would just attack, activate the effect, have that. We did use all our attachment effects, so in this case, we're just going to grab extra stuff. So on the off chance we don't win, we'll grab a Stray Street. And we have 2 more attacks, so attack again, activate the effect, grab that. By math, we've won, but let's say we had to fire off 2 pretty memories or something on the previous turn. Our opponent started at 10k. Go ahead and use that 3rd attack, half again. And we'll just grab an extra My Friend Purrely, because why not? Remember, non-once per turn, we can just keep grabbing cards every time we attack. And then, sure, because we've had the attack so many times, poke him with Ghostrick Dullahan. And then if by some chance we didn't win, make a Noir at the end of that. So yeah, that was the Epurrely Happiness OTK. Very, very cool. You saw how out of control it can get if we get lucky, but even if we hadn't, we did open the very, very basic combo, which would have been enough with the Hungry Burger on field. But because we got the 2 extra Purrelys, we were able to make a Ghostrick Dullahan, so if we didn't have that extra delicious memory, we still would have been able to do it from there. Okay, so that was the 2 lines of plays that I really, really wanted to show for this deck. Just to kind of, again, give you a little bit of a primer of 2 basic lines that are gonna really help you get running when you start testing this out yourself. We're going to, in the next video, show this deck in action against the Edo Pro AI and hopefully show even more alternative routes to get from point A to point B, again, showing how the deck can work in less than ideal situations. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for even more, and I will see you guys in Learning a Deck with Me, Part 3, Purrely Edition, and I will catch you all later.